Hello, my name's Mark and welcome to Grimgor's Tabletop Gaming. In this video I'm going to be unboxing the Army Painter wet palette system and also comparing it against the homemade system that I use regularly. Cue the titles. So why did I decide to go for a dedicated wet palette system? Well, I'm currently using a homemade version, which is a clear seal container with a couple of sheets of paper towel and also some baking paper on top. Although this is pretty good, I find the actual level of the paper is a bit inconsistent because of the base of the container. So therefore I thought I'd go for something a little bit more professional. So I bought this off of Amazon Prime for about £16. It come within a few days, as Amazon Prime normally does. It weighs in about 480 grams. The dimensions are about 6 inches high, 9 inches wide and 2.5 inches deep. So let's get started unwrapping the actual box itself. So using my trusty scalpel, I'm going to make a first cut, then take the rest of the cellophane off. Cellophane's fairly good quality, protects the box itself, keeping a nice finish. So now the cellophane's off, we can start looking at the details on the box. We've got the Army Painter wet palette system written at the top, and also an image of somebody using the wet palette with 2 paints. Additionally showing the consumable contents and the best way to keep your war paints fresh and ready. So moving the box around, you can see a little bit more information on the sides there. Also shows it includes a painting guide and also a tool guide. Flipping it around to the front and now to the back. So it gives you the Army Painter brand, a little bit of information in relation to the quality and what the contents are. Moving on, showing the actual sheets and also the pads and also the band at the top, and then showing the actual hard case at the bottom, how it's constructed. So let's open the box and see what's actually inside. Okay, so we've got the Army Painter wet palette sealed, and another container with information and looks at the contents of the consumable items. So we have 2 leaflets included. First of all is the Army Painter Tool and Assembly Safety Guide, and also the War Games Army Painting Guide. I'll go through these in a little bit more detail later on in the video. So let's look at the palette itself. Comes supplied with bubble wrap to make sure it's safe and secure, and also got a red elasticated band. The width is 13.8 centimetres and the length is 9.8 centimetres. So I'm just going to open the system up. First of all, you've got your top lid, and it looks like a red storage tray for paintbrushes, etc. And then we've got the bottom tray area. Looks as though it's got a little stand on underneath just to raise it off the tabletop. So let's open the other contents of the box. We have a wet palette how to use guide showing how to prepare the actual unit, how to use the unit, and also how to store it. So we've got 50 sheets of hydro sheets. This is the top layer the paint goes directly onto. And 2 foam pads. We put them at the base of the system, and that holds the water. Next leaflet gives you a full range of paints available, and also read before use. We also have a Army Painter Hobby Products leaflet and 2 foam pads. Let's open one of the pads up so you can see what they're actually like. So fairly thin, nice and shiny, and looks quite absorbent. So now just look at the hydro sheets. We get 50 in a pack. A bit like tracing paper, but white, so they're pretty good for contrast against paints. So let's open the box up itself, taking you to the bottom tray. Just going to add the foam pads to the bottom, and also the hydro sheets at the top. Just gives you an idea of the actual layering of the unit. So I'm just going to put the wet system back together again, just to show you how it goes all back. So it's time for a closer look at the Army Painter Hobby Products pamphlet. Just opening it up, on the first page it just gives you the hobby tools, primer sprays, war paints and also brushes, and flipping it over it gives us a quick shade guide, war paint sets, other products in the system. The other leaflet is how to use guide. Opening it up it gives you information about preparation and setup of the unit, using the wet palette and storage, transportation, and a bit of safety guidance at the bottom. Looking at the back there, more advertising. In at the next booklet, which is titled Tools, Assembly and Safety Guide, first couple of pages just gives you assembly safety instructions, what to do and what not to do. So just flip over to the next couple of pages. In these 2 pages it shows you how to assemble plastic miniatures, cut parts off sprues, tidy up the miniature, assembling and miniature bases. So just turning the pages over, it gives you a little bit more detail in relation to one figure becoming a unit, and then moves on to metal miniatures, how to set them up, how to glue together. Also gives you information about other types of glues that we can use. So moving on to the next couple of pages, it gives information about combining materials, cutting out resin parts, cleaning the miniature and assembling. Also as well gives a little bit of information about magnetising miniatures. I think I'll look into that in the near future. Moving on to the next pages, gives us information on using green stuff, how to finish a large mini, and then on what to do now after we've actually assembled it in relation to the painting systems. And now on to the last page, just gives you information about the accessory and tool range. The next book, titled Army Painting Guide, is quite a thick book, and let's go through it. The first page just gives you an index on the left hand side, and on the right hand side gives you a pictorial spray, paint, dip and done scenario. So just flipping it over to the next pages. It gives us pre-step assembly of your miniatures, giving information about cutters, flame cutters, hobby knives and files, and then moving on to super glues and activators. So on the next pages we've got information in relation to plastic miniatures, assembling larger miniatures, information about a model drill, and spraying using colour primers. So just flipping the page again, it gives us more information on how to use the colour primers, basically a step-by-step guide including bulk spraying. So just flipping over the pages again, we've got information on base coat and wood war paints. Basically it's a step-by-step guide, and on the next page is a little bit of advertising information in relation to the paints they supply. So just flipping the pages again, goes into a little bit of detail in relation to choosing the right colours, types of colours and palettes, and also working on an army project. So the next pages concentrate on quick shade washes, on the metal effects as well as standard washes, and also highlighting with a highlight chart. So ultimately this booklet is really about advertising, but also gives you really good tips on how to paint your models. So this page here just gives you information about applying a quick shade, how to do it, and also a little bit of information about larger models. So we're coming to the end of the booklet now. It gives information in relation to varnishing and basing. First of all, just gives you ideas of how to varnish, and also just final touches with the basing. Just add a little bit extra to that model. We've also got information in relation to other supplies they give, including tufts of grass, razor wire, static grass, and also on the other page it gives you painter techniques. Last page, just a little bit of information in relation to Army Painter. Let's start off with my homemade wet palette system. Basically it's just a clear container with a lid to keep everything airtight. I put a couple of sheets of kitchen paper inside. That's to hold the water, the moisture into the pot itself. Add a little bit of water to moisten, and a little bit more just to make sure it's fully moistened. So the next stage of this is to add the baking paper. Just pull it off on top. I find it's best to actually place it like this so it doesn't roll up on the sides. So I'm just flattening down the baking paper onto the wet towel, making sure there's no creases, and also as well to make sure any moisture from the towel does actually go through to the baking paper. As you can see by my hands, if you can see it on this, it is actually quite moist. Put the lid back on and let's move on to the next stage. So to give a comparison between the two types of wet palette systems, I'm just going to open up and set up this wet palette system by Army Painter. So as previously on this video, I already had the foam and also the sheets installed inside there, but however they're dry. So now I'm just going to moisten them up with a little bit of water. Just going to pour the water in over the actual pad itself and work its way in. Unfortunately I didn't bring enough water out for this part of the video, so I'm just going to make do with what I've got at the moment. So I'm just spreading the water around the actual foam pad itself, trying to get rid of all the creases in the pad itself and trying to make it nice and smooth as well. Time to put the sheet on top. So as I place it in there, just pressing it down, trying to get rid of all the actual creases on the sheet itself, trying to prevent it from rolling up on the corners. Unfortunately I ran out of water, so therefore I'm just going to make do with what I've got, but it's sufficient enough. So just reinstall the actual case itself, just to show you how it's stored. So just move the two systems side by side so you can see the sizes. So I've actually put more water into the foam pads to make sure they're properly moistened as per instructions. I'm using two paints to experiment with, Vallejo game colours. First one is a white. I'm just going to be putting it on both pads. You can't really see it on the Army Painter one, obviously because it's a white background. Then we're going to be using the blue side by side, and we can start to look how they mix together. So starting with the white paint on the homemade one, it seems quite fluid, quite nice, but then again I'm used to this sort of wet palette. Just moving over to the Army Painter, it doesn't seem as fluid as the homemade version, but it's trial and error to see how it goes. So now it's the time for the blue. Again, same as the white on the homemade one. I like the consistency of the paint itself. Moving over to the Army Painter. Again, it feels like the same consistency as the white. So it might take a little bit of time getting used to. Maybe add a little bit more water on it. But we'll see how it goes when I'm actually using it when painting figures. We're going to start blending the actual paints together. As you can see, not too clearly on this because of the sides of the actual homemade system. You can see where they're blending into a light shade of blue. And just gradually increasing it so it's lighter and lighter, and they're going to have a little bit more blue to make it darker later on. So just moving on to the army painter system, just going to start blending it. So it's got the dark blue onto a lighter shade of blue, just blending it with the white. I can't really see a lot of difference. Obviously it's not as fluid as the homemade version, but that's probably because I probably may have more water in the surface of the baking pad. Consistency, now I'm actually getting used to it. Seems something that I can actually get used to. We're going from a lighter shade back up to a darker shade. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it informative. And I appreciate any feedback, whether it's like, comment, and also if you'd like to subscribe to see more videos, please click that subscribe button. Until next time, goodbye.